Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Lance and Delaney are in the house. Welcome you too. Lance, I guess we're officially dog days, or do we have to wait till next week to be in the dog days of summer?
Well, ironically, Bob, it's 79 degrees and raining here today, and we've been blessed with probably an inch and a half of rain. We were in drought conditions, so it's very nice today.
So it's not dog days. Okay. All right, let's get to the questions. Number one, this came out of Motley Fool, and I'm just curious. They profiled one lender. Well, it was Live Oak Bank. You can read that if you want. It says, how are your sales to the secondary market compared to 6 months ago? Up, down, the same? Who knows? You're in line with what the article was. Decreasing, I would have lost that bet, Lance.
Yeah, I would have thought the same probably would have been the most common response, but certainly the premiums are down. So, and loan volume, I think, has decreased a little bit, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and that's consistent with what I'm hearing out there, Lance. People I talk to, their loan volume's down. We always talk about demand and supply, so the demand for small business lending is down.
Well, and Delaney had an article a few weeks back talking about how small businesses were not really interested in borrowing more money at this time.
Yeah, Delaney, why don't you recap that for us?
I hate to put you on the spot, Delaney.
Way to go. Come on, Delaney.
I cannot
say, Bob, it's not in the script. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, it isn't in the script. I don't have any statistics off the top of my head, but I know a lot of small businesses and small business owners were not interested in a loan. They were worried about different pressures and interest rates. So, and a lot of them had their needs met, I believe.
Yeah, very good. Number two, do you believe your per loan profitability, return on investment, however you calculate it at your institution, in other words, the price that it costs to put the loan, to create the asset for the lender, for the bank, for your institution, are your costs increasing, but are they being offset? So overall, what's going on with profitability?
Not surprised.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of
costs are rising faster than we can recoup those cost, Lance.
Well, a key component in the income side of this is being able to sell on the secondary market, and premiums were gigantic or were huge several months ago, and they're decreasing. The other thing that's causing issue, normally banks operate or financial institutions operate with a spread between the cost of funds and what they're lending the money for. But inside of that, Bob, employees have gotten more expensive.
And those numbers that were touted about PPP fee income, those are huge numbers. But guess what, Lance? There are costs associated with PPP, especially now that we're servicing and preparing PDKs. That isn't cheap, Lance, is it? And you know that personally.
Well, I think a lot of institutions collected a lot of processing fee income from PPP. And now we're spending some of the money working our way out of PPP via servicing and guarantee purchase. Now, there is an income stream that comes as a result of PPP servicing and guarantee purchase, forgiveness and guarantee purchase. We finally get to collect that whopping 1% interest that we're owed on a lot of these loans.
Delaney, talk to us about fraud. Specifically, you wrote today about PPP fraud. Let's go to the PPP fraud story. Come on, Joseph. There we go. And what happened?
Well, would you prefer me start with the first fraud or the PPP fraud?
You know what? This is your part of the show. You may do whatever you wish. How's that sound?
All right, that sounds good.
I can't stop, so go ahead.
Mr. Sir Havana, he was the Vice President, Director, and CEO of Mana Tax Services, and he recently pled guilty to a number of different fraud schemes. The first of which, of course, Manna Tax Services is a tax preparation company, and he would prepare false and fraudulent tax returns to send to the IRS.
No.
And he managed to convince at least 9 athletes to work with him. They boasted of their ability to obtain large refunds and correct purported errors on previous year's tax returns. He managed to get about $3.1 million in fees. He would charge all of them a 30% fee from the refund.
Nice.
Similarly, with the PPP fraud, there's a lot of false documents. Of course, they are able to provide false tax documents that I'm sure look incredibly accurate and apply for different, using different people's identities and different businesses, and they managed to obtain, well, the government seized $11.8 million. So I'm actually not sure how much they obtained in these 30% fees.
No, they seized $11 million.
Wow.
By the way, we're accusing, the government is accusing Mr. Havana, or not accusing him, they found him guilty. It appears the athletes are victims. They are not part of the fraud scheme. Is that correct, Delaney? And
From what I can see so far, that looks correct.
the answer to your question is we don't know the names. Go ahead, Lance.
Well, in this case, this story also brings out a very relevant point about PPP. As financial institutions issuing the PPP loans, we relied heavily on prepared tax documentation. And here you have a professional tax preparer preparing the documents submitted fraudulently on these PPP loans. So, not only did they take advantage of SBA, they took advantage of the financial institutions as well as the athletes that he got involved.
Lance, you are one of these athletes, and what you've been defrauded. What's going to happen to you?
I'm not real sure, Bob. I think they're going to make the athletes, certainly would make the athletes give the money back. Any monies they receive back. And it sounds like maybe the federal government has found the athletes it sounds like they've found the athletes as victims as opposed to perpetrators.
Oh, you know very well if they were victims, they would have splattered their names all over the place. But
Oh, yeah.
And this brings up a bigger question, which is we talk about it from time to time, Delaney, celebrity worship of athletes as well as Hollywood celebrities and Hollywood stars. And pulled up a fascinating report. Let me just read these off to you. Number one, as I said, the reason why is they're victims of fraud is they're stupid. Now that was unduly harsh, but you have these individuals who don't have a lot of education. They're coddled throughout high school and college, and they're relying on other people. So here are the 5 common things that you should be aware of. Number one, shortage of time to manage their own finances. That is true. Number 2, reliance on non-qualified or inexperienced people. And number 3, misplaced trust. Lance, and I should know this, and there was a Washington Redskins player. Well, there's several players who they got into the league, and he drove old cars, and he said, every dollar I make, I'm putting in the bank because I know I'm only going to be in this league for the average lifespan of a player is 18 months in the league and then 3 or 5 years. I mean, this is a brutal way to make a living.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I think the challenge and the reason they're quite often victims of fraud is they rely on other people. And when you look at agents, typically they don't have accounting and finance backgrounds in a lot of cases. And, there wouldn't be a series on ESPN, Bob. There's a series on ESPN about athletes who make enormous sums of money, but somehow end up broke by the end of their career. They're relying on people to manage their money who are not experts at managing money.
And that's number 4. Lance, you are definitely off script, but it's okay. It means you know what you're talking about. Number 4, qualified and experienced advisors with unchecked access to their finances. And number 5, exploitation by family and friends. Go ahead.
I'll offer up an example that I just witnessed. Bob, a young man that grew up in Northwest Arkansas, played for the Arkansas Razorbacks, signed a contract with I think it was Indianapolis Colts, only played 2 or 3 years and made a few $1 million. Well, this kid had a degree from the Sam Walton College of Business. He did not rely on others, and now he owns one of the largest parcels of real estate on a major highway in one of the fastest growing areas of America. He did not rely on that, but so many athletes have an agent who has no background in managing money.
Yeah, so don't be seduced by these eye-popping salaries, and because everyone has their fingers in the pie for, to take their cuts. I'm looking for, here we go, the average salaries are pretty amazing, but don't forget, soccer players, it's interesting, soccer is highlighted here, but the athlete victims by sport, football 38%, basketball 24%, soccer is 3%. I've seen higher numbers, ice hockey 14%, running 4% of professional runners, boxers, and baseball 10%. Go ahead, Lance.
I'll share a brief story. I taught for 9 years at the University of Arkansas in the Walton College of Business, and I had quite a number of athletes that came through my classes. I am not surprised at all, Bob. Track athletes were usually exceptional students, very studious, and the same thing was true with baseball athletes that I had. And not that I didn't have smart students in other categories of sports, but I could almost guarantee you, if I had a track athlete, they were going to be a good student. If I had a baseball player, they were going to be a pretty good student. Football, it was a mixed bag, and basketball was certainly a mixed bag as well. But I'm not surprised that baseball and track are the least.
The stats, it's pushing half of them are bankrupt or out of money within 5 years. So it's so when you see those eye-popping numbers, you cannot. First of all, those if they made that much money in 2020, you certainly cannot assume they're going to make that money in 2023. And you be careful. Be careful with those type of loans. Even our friend Nick Patel, the BNI $64 million fraudster, he wanted to get into the movie business, and he was playing producer. Obviously, he had money, but it disappeared when the feds seized everything. What else you got, Delaney?
Well, next, this one's interesting. They allegedly participated in quite a number of different fraud schemes that affected banks, mortgage lending businesses, the SBA, and the Federal Trade Commission. These three said that they were going to turn themselves in, not put up a fight, and apparently they decided to flee. They have now been found.
Where were they found? Do you know?
Good question. I know, so this press release is from Houston, but some of these, it spans multiple states. So one of them is from Utah. I think another one was from Mission Viejo, actually.
Thank you.
Let me see what else. So they come from a variety of places.
Go ahead.
Their fraud scheme, they would find these clients and people saying that they would do a credit repair, which ended up involving filing false identity theft reports to the Federal Trade Commission. So then, it would kind of clean their credit scores and whatnot. They would inflate the credit worthiness and then apply for mortgage loans, disaster loans, get real estate properties to build a real estate portfolio. And eventually, this is all alleged, by the way, but eventually it seems that it caught up to them if they do get charged or found guilty.
They've been indicted, so it's again the old mortgage lending. And you got one more story, Delaney.
I sure do, Mr.
Go ahead.
And this was only a one name. There was no last name.
Oh.
Fiege.
Better, your guess is better than mine. Go ahead.
So through Minnesota's unemployment insurance program and the EIDL program, he obtained information from a variety of people, at least 25, including birthdays, social security numbers, all the works. And he would apply for EIDL loans for fictitious businesses. And now I'm going to have to list this off because there's quite a number of interesting aspects. He had multiple burner phones, created many different email addresses that he used to impersonate others. And he had photoshopped passports, utility bills, and other documents for the programs he was applying for verification.
Did he have the voice alteration software on the phone? I'm sure he did.
I'm not sure.
I'm sure he did. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
8.5 years, though. It's quite a...
Yeah, and the reason why we talk about these is the old Ronald Reagan line, trust but verified. People come in and say stuff. Okay, fine. We'll take you at face value, but go back and do a little diligence. And it's scary what you can do on the web. Do a search of yourself. And then, Lance, I will be able to find your birthday within 10 minutes if I want to.
Yeah, it amazes me. Some of the greatest thing on my cell phone that ever happened is Verizon has an app that tells me what the fraud risk is with each phone call that comes in if you're not in my contact list. And I think that's a great thing because I've made the mistake of answering a couple of those calls and they knew quite a bit of information about me. So I think the primary story there is don't give your numbers out. Social Security numbers, never. Don't do it. It's easy enough for them to find it online, but please don't share.
Yeah, and I try to answer my phone because I get calls from you, and but I hang up on a lot of people. Hey, what are you talking about next Wednesday, Lance?
Well, there was a new IFR that came out that changed or clarified quite a number of items in SBA 7A and 504 lending, and we're going to try to give you clarity in what some of those changes are. So make sure and sign up, guys. It's new information. It's great when SBA releases something new. It's been such a long time, but we're going to cover that next Wednesday.
Well, what I like also is now we're in a world of rising interest rates, and they clarified what we can charge. And that's, Lance, you're going to go through all that. And how do you logistically manage the wording and the authorization to what we can charge and make sure we're doing it correctly. So
yes, absolutely.
Well, very good. Well, everyone, Lance, I know you have to run right at 10:20. Excuse me, 1:20 to 20 after the hour. So thank you very much, Lance and Delaney. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you for joining us today for today's episode. If you like today's content, hit that subscribe button to subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon to get notified about our latest videos. Thank you again for joining us today and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Catch you next time.